Hello everyone, this is Naren Sirswa and welcome to Udan. Today I'm dealing with daily news and editorial analysis. So starting news analysis, first news analysis is Green Tribunal directs LG Polymers to deposit rupees 50 crore. This is important for GS paper second and GS paper third. If I talk about subtopics of this news, statutory, regulatory, and various quasi judicial bodies, that is also important for you. Conservation, environmental pollution, and degradation, environmental impact assessment. Next is disaster and disaster management. Let's talk about why news. The NGT directed LG Polymers India to deposit an initial amount of rupees 50 crore for the damage caused by the gas leak at its plant in Visakhapatnam, which left at least 11 people dead and affected several others. Nothing that the strin gas was defined as a hazardous chemical under relevant rules, it said. The rules require on-site and off-site emergency plans to ensure prevention of damage. There appears to be failure to comply with rules and other statutory provisions. Next is Green Tribunal National Green Tribunal NGT. NGT was established on 18th October 2010 under the NGT Act 2010 as a specialized body for handling any environmental disputes that involve multidisciplinary issues. It was formed by replacing the National Environment Appellate Authority. It also draws an inspiration from Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, which assures to provide a healthy environment to the citizen of India. India has become the third country in the world after Australia and New Zealand for setting up a specialized environmental tribunal, and also the first developing country to do so. The National Green Tribunal has a total of 5 places of sitting, namely Bhopal, Pune, New Delhi, Kolkata, and Chennai, among which New Delhi is the principal place of sitting. Next, talk about objectives of NGT. Some of the major objectives of NGT are as follows. First is effective and expeditious disposal of cases that are related to protection and conservation of the environmental, forests, and other natural resources. To give relief and compensations for any damage caused to persons and properties. To handle various environmental disputes that involve multidisciplinary issues. Next, talk about structure of NGT. The National Green Tribunal NGT comprises of 3 major bodies, namely the chairperson, the judicial members, and the expert members. Also, there should be a minimum of 10 and maximum 20 full-time judicial as well as expert members in the NGT. All these members are required to hold the office for a period of 5 years and are not eligible for reappointment. The chairperson of the NGT is appointed by Central Government of India in accordance with the CJI. A section committee is formed by Central Government of India for appointment of judicial members and expert members. Next, talk about what are the powers of NGT. Over the past few years, the NGT developed as an important body for regulation of the environmental and passing strict orders on issues related to pollution, deforestation, waste management, etc. Some of the major powers of the NGT include NGT provides a way for the evolution of environmental jurisprudence through the development of an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. It helps in a reduction of the litigation burden on environmental matters in the higher courts. NGT provides a faster solution for various environmental related disputes that are less formal and less expensive. It curbs environment damaging activities. NGT ensures the strict observation and environment impact assessment process. NGT provides reliefs and compensations for any damages caused to persons and properties. Next, the National Green Tribunal resolves various civil cases under the following 7 laws that are related to the environment. First is Water Act, Prevention and Control of Pollution 1974. Second is Waterways Act, Prevention and Control of Pollution 1977. Next is Forest Act, Conservation 1980. Fourth is Air Act, Prevention and Control of Pollution 1981. Fifth is Environment Protection Act 1986. Sixth is Public Liability Insurance Act 1991. And seventh is Biological Diversity Act 2002. Next, talk about Central Pollution Control Board. The CPCB of India is a statutory organization under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Let's talk about a background. It was established in 1974 under the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act in 1974. CPCB is also entrusted with the powers and functions under the Air Prevention and Control Pollution Act 1981. It serves as field formation and also provide technical services to the Ministry of Environment and Forests under the provisions of the Environment Protection Act 1986. It coordinates the activities of the state pollution control boards by providing technical assistance and guidance and also resolves a dispute among them. It is the apex organization in country in the field of pollution control as a technical wing of MOEF, Ministry of Environment and Forest. Next is CPCB, along with its counterparts, the State Pollution Control Board, are responsible for implementation of legislation relating to prevention and control of environmental pollutions. Okay, next talk about what are the functions of CPCB. First is air quality pollution. CPCB runs nationwide programs of ambient air quality monitoring known as National Air Quality Monitoring Program. The network consists of 621 operating stations covering 262 cities, towns in 28 states and 6 UTs. Under NAMP, 4 air pollutants with sulfur dioxide, oxides of nitrogen, suspended identified for regular monitoring at all the locations. The monitoring of meteorological parameters such as wind speed and wind direction, relative humidity and temperature were also integrated with the monitoring of air quality. Next is NGT observation on Visakhapatnam gas tragedy. The court found that strict liability evolved in 1868 English case called Raylands versus Fletcher, provided companies with several exemptions from assuming liability. Absolute liability, on the other hand, provided them with no defense or exemptions. The principle of absolute liability is part of Article 21, right to life. The courts, to make the legal position clear, should use the term absolute liability in orders and judgments. Next, second is India Japan to work together post COVID 19. This is important for your GS paper second. Governance, constitution, polity, social justice, and international relations. If I talk about subtopics of this news, bilateral, regional, and global groupings and agreements involving India and or affecting India's interests. Let's talk about why in news. India and Japan agreed to work together with other countries to deal with challenges post COVID 19 with the India Japan Special Strategic and Global Partnership as the basis. Let's talk about IR point of view. India Japan relations. India and Japan share robust ties with cooperation in areas of defense, science, and cooperation and trade. In 2014, India and Japan upgraded their relationship to Special Strategic and Global Partnership. Mumbai Ahmedabad high speed railway is a very important area of cooperation between India and Japan in railway sector. A India-Japan digital partnership was launched during the visit of PM of India to Japan in October 2018, furthering existing areas of cooperation as well as new initiatives with the scope of cooperation in science and tech, ICT, focusing more on digital ICT technologies. The India-Japan Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement that comes into force in August 2011 covers trade in goods, services, movement of natural persons, investments, intellectual property rights, custom procedures, and other trade related issues. India and Japan Defense Forces organize a series of bilateral exercises, namely ZIMEX, Siniyu, Maitri, and Dharma Garjan. Both the countries also participate in Malabar exercise with USA. Next, talk about Japan-China relations. A high-profile casualty of pandemic in Chinese President Xi Jinping's long-pending visit to Tokyo, but Japan's mask diplomacy and generous assistance to China at the start of the pandemic augur well for Sino-Japanese ties, which have improved in recent years, their inveterate differences notwithstanding. Next is India visit by Japan. Abe's postponed visit to India, earlier scheduled to take place at the end of 2019, will be hard to resurrect before the pandemic is completely under control. Nevertheless, the fundamental convergence of interests and extraordinary political capital invested in the relationship by both PM Modi and Abe in recent years ensures that special strategic and global partnership between India and Japan will remain robust. Next is how Japan tackled the pandemic so far. So far, Japan and relied on its customary discipline and prevention methods with an exhortation to the public to avoid the three C's, closed spaces, crowded places, and conversation at close proximity. Next is no lockdown. Japan has shield away from taking the bold approach that Modi took in announcing a 21-day nationwide lockdown. Next is the declaration of state emergency covering the megacities of Tokyo and Osaka and some prefectures would give local governors in the hardest hit areas greater legal authority to impose curbs, albeit without the power to impose penalties. Japan's case by case approach to the reopening of schools by regional authorities has been criticized. There have been calls for a strict lockdown before it too late to avert the same fate as Italy, Spain, and the US. In a race to develop vaccine with formidable scientific powers at its disposal, Japan remains at the forefront in the race to develop a vaccine against COVID 19. Next is conclusion. New vistas of India Japan cooperation. The pandemic opens up new vistas for cooperation in healthcare, no traditional security, and global governance, including reform of the UN and affiliated bodies such as the WHO. Those contribution in the battle against COVID 19 are moot. Next is third news. Vande Bharat mission to cover more European nations. This is related to GS paper second governance, constitution, polity, social justice and international relations. Subtopics of this news: effects of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interests and Indian diaspora. Why in news, the Vande Bharat mission to evacuate Indian citizens is expected to cover Russia, Ukraine, Germany, Spain and East Europe in third week of May 2020. The process of repatriation, which is focused on the Gulf and South Asian regions, began on 7th May 2020 and is expected to involve 64 flights bringing back 15,000 nationals from different parts of the world through 14 Indian airports. India launched one of the largest repatriation program, Vande Bharat mission, not just to bring back Indian nationals but also those NRIs who want to return to their respective countries where they have jobs. In an effort to bring back its stranded citizens abroad due to the spread of the novel coronavirus and the resulting lockdown thereof, India has rolled out massive evacuation plans called Vande Bharat Mission and Samudra Setu, perhaps one of the largest evacuation drills since the Kuwait airlift in 1990 airlift will take place from May 7 to May 13. The first phase of the mass evacuation mission will roll out from today. Under the repatriation plan, the government will be facilitating the return of Indian nationals stranded abroad on compelling grounds in phased manner. Next is, what is Vande Bharat mission all about? Vande Bharat mission will see 64 flights being operated from May 7 to May 13 to bring back around 15,000 Indian nationals stranded abroad. Approximately 2,000 people from abroad will fly back to India daily. India will operate 10 flights to the UAE, 7 flights each to the US and the UK, 5 flights to Saudi Arabia, 5 flights to Singapore and 2 flights to Qatar to repatriate Indian nationals between May 7 and May 13. During the period, India will also operate 7 flights each to Malaysia and Bangladesh, 5 flights each to Kuwait and Philippines, 2 flights each to Oman and Bahrain. Next is, what is Samudra Setu mission all about? Apart from the Vande Bharat mission, the Indian Navy has launched Operation Samudra Setu as a part of national effort to repatriate Indian citizens from overseas Indian naval ships named Jalswa and Magarwar are presently en route to the port of Malé, Republic of Maldives to commence evacuation operation from 8 May 2020. As part of Phase First, INS Jalaswa is the largest amphibious platform in the Navy and is based at the Eastern Naval Command headquarters in Visakhapatnam. A total of 1,000 persons are planned to be evacuated during the first trip, catering for COVID related social distancing norms vis-a-vis the carrying capacity and medical facilities available on board. The statement further noted Indian will be allowed to board the ships only after medical screening. They will be quarantined for 14 days after their arrival in Kochi. Next, fourth news, mass hatching of olive ridley turtles begins at Odisha's Rusikulya Rookery. Syllabus GS Third Technology, Economic Development, Biodiversity, Environment, Security and Disaster Management. Subtopics are conservation, environmental pollutions and degradation, environmental impact assessment. Why in news? Mass hatching of olive ridley turtles began at Odisha's Rusikulya Rookery, a major nesting site of these marine turtles. Thousands of hatchings came out of the nests buried in sand to crawl towards the sea to start their long journey. On an average of 80 to 100 turtles hatch from each nest. Next is a mass hatching. The mass nesting process began in the wee hours of March 21 and continued till the night of March 28. Olive ridley turtles' eggs incubate on their own in the heat of the beach sand. They hatch in 45 to 60 days depending on the temperature of the sand and atmosphere during the incubation period. A mass nesting numbers had gradually increased to reach the peak and then decreased. Mass hatching was also expected to take the same path. To protect the eggs from predators and humans, the forest department had put up metal net fencing over 5 km from Gokharkuda to Bateswar, and the area was divided into 50 segments of regular watching. Next, what are the concerns? The lockdown due to COVID-19 had stopped outsiders from reaching the spot, but high tides related to new moon on April 23 had washed away a large number of nests. Olive ridley sea turtle. The olive ridley sea turtle is the most abundant of all sea turtles found in the world. It is found in warm and tropical waters, primarily in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. It is best known for their unique mass nesting called Aribada, very important, where thousands of females come together on the same beach to lay eggs. Next is IUCN status vulnerable for this species. As you can see here, image of these turtles. Endangered olive ridley turtles at the Rusikulya Rookery in Ganjam district of Odisha. Next is talk about marine turtles. 5 species of sea turtles are known to inhabit Indian coastal water and islands. Olive ridley turtles, green turtles, hawkbill turtle, loggerhead turtle, leatherback turtle. Except the loggerhead, the remaining four species nest along the Indian coast. Next is Rusicula River. Rusicula Rukri coast in Ganjam district of Odisha. The Rusicula River is one of the major rivers in the state of Odisha and covers entire catchment area in the districts of Kandhamal and Ganjam district of Odisha. Next is Devi River. Devi River is one of the principal tributaries of Mahanadi. It flows through Jagatsinghpur district and Puri district across Odisha state in India and joins the Bay of Bengal. Next is editorial. First is contempt of labor. This is related to GS paper. Second, governance, constitution, polity, social justice and international relations. Subtopics are government policies, welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by the center and states and the performance of these schemes. Next is context. Center should not allow exemptions from welfare laws for workers mooted by states. The revival of business and economic activity after weeks of forced closure is indeed a key objective to be achieved. However, it is amoral and perverse on the part of some states to address this need by granting sweeping exemptions from legal provisions aimed at protecting laborers and employees in factories, industries, and other establishments. Next is what are the concerns with labor law? Labor laws involving safety at workplace, wages, social security, and industrial relations distort the labor market. Due to the complex and massive numbers of labor laws, industries prefer to hire contractual laborers not covered under these laws and without any social security or termination protection. Another major problem of labor market in India is that there is a growing number of unskilled laborers in the country. Current labor reforms are less focused on apprenticeship. Labor market in India is suffering from surplus labor force, lack of adequate information regarding jobs, child labor practices, lack of proper manpower planning, etc. Next is what are the constitutional provisions? Under Article 246, labor being in concurrent list, many states and even center have enacted laws. So many laws lead to confusion about regulation giving rise to Inspector Raj. Under Article 43A was inserted by 42nd Amendment directing state to take steps to ensure workers' participation in management of industries. Under Article 23 forbids forced labor, 24 forbids child labor in factories, mines and other hazardous occupations below age of 14 years. Next is important laws related to industrial relations are Employee State Insurance Act. ESI card is issued ensuring worker against any accident at work. There is also ESI Corporation. Next is Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act. Provident fund is one in which employee pays part of his wage 12% in the most cases and equal contribution by employer. This is mandatory for establishment employing more than 20 people. Next is Factories Act 1948. First is Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act. prohibits children below age of 14 to work in hazardous jobs. There are demands for complete ban on child employment. Next is Industrial Disputes Act. One important provisions: industries employing more than 100 people cannot terminate employment before approval of government. There is a strong demand from industry to revise this limit to facilitate easy entry and exit. Next is Minimum Wages Act, Bonded Labor System Act, system in which one-time payment was made up employer to supplier or leader of group, and whole seasons of year services of labor was taken, still rampant in some businesses like brick kilns. Next is Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act 1970. Contract labor is indirectly employed by an establishment through a contractor or agency. So the relation with principal organization becomes ambiguous. They are generally discriminated against direct employees in terms of wages, job security status, etc. This act attempts to abolish in the certain circumstances and to bring them as per with direct employees. Next is Apprentice Act 1961. Reforms needed in labor law. There is an overlapping of labor laws which gives immense powers to officials to harass the employer and leads to corruption. Social safety net for workers in order to enable capacity building for workers. Disinvestment and FDI PSEs, one of the main objectives was to provide employment even at cost of economy, but this very policy was a result of demise of PSEs. Same is true for FDI. Labor reforms essentially mean taking steps in increasing production, productivity, and employment opportunities in the economy in such a manner that the interests of the workers are not compromised. Next is essentially it means skill development, retraining, redeployment, updating knowledge base of workers, teachers, promotion of leadership qualities, etc. Labor reforms also include labor law reforms. Labor laws are concerned with the trade union rights of the workers, industrial relations and job security, and policies relating to wages, bonus and other incentive schemes. Next is labor reforms are of great importance as the laws enacted in the labor market aim at regulating the market, protecting employment and ensuring social security of workers. Next is what are the steps taken by government? 4 labor codes aims at simplification, amalgamation and rationalization of central labor laws. Next is Child Labor Provision and Regulation Amendment Act 2016 provides complete ban on employment of children below 14 years of age. Next is Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017 has increased paid maternity leave from 12 weeks to 26 weeks. The second National Commission of Labour had recommended simplification, amalgamation and rationalization of central labour laws. The central government is compressing of 44 central labour laws into 4 codes or broad categories: wages, social security, industrial relation and occupational health and safety. Next is way ahead. Changes in the manner in which labor laws operate in a state may require the center's assent. One hopes the center, which is pursuing a labor reform agenda through consolidated codes for wages, industrial relations, and occupational safety, health, and working conditions, would not readily agree to wholesale exemptions from legal safeguards and protection the law now affords to workers. Reforms should be made with consensus amongst workers and the unions and employers and their associations. Trust between workers and employers should be increased. A national policy for domestic workers needs to be brought in at the earliest, recognize their rights and promote a better working conditions. Next is eradicate it. That is related to Indian heritage and culture, history and geography of the world and society. Subtopics role of women, their problems and their remedies. Next talk about context. Sudan's decisions to outlaw the practice of female genital mutilation (FGM) is a landmark victory for the women's rights in a country that is still in a transition from dictatorship to democracy. The development follows the transitional government's decision to scrap the repressive social codes and humiliating penalties that targeted women during the nearly 30-year dictatorship of Omar al-Bashir, which fell last year amid protests. Next is statistics. If I talk about statistics, according to the UN, over 200 million women in several African countries, including Sudan, Egypt, Nigeria, Djibouti, and Senegal, and some in Asia, have been subject to this brutal social custom. WHO is somewhat skeptical about the effectiveness of recent reconstruction surgeries. The prevailing scenario thus underscores the need of stronger campaigns and bold actions to stop these social scourges. In Egypt's first FGM trial in 2014, 6 years after Cairo clamped a ban, the doctor who had carried out the procedure, as well as the father of the deceased girl, were acquitted despite incriminating forensic evidence. In Somalia, the country with the highest prevalence rate but no legal ban, the death of a girl in 2018 after a similar procedure led to the first prosecution in such incidents. In Uganda, reports last year of some 300 cases of mutilation with the month shed light on the government's uphill task to back existing legislation with vigorous awareness campaigns. In Kenya, where the practice was criminalized in 2011, the government strategy last year requiring girls to be tested for circumcision raised concerns of victimization and privacy violation. Next is what is FGM? Female genital mutilation. FGM is the name given to procedures that involve altering or injuring the female genitalia for non-medical or cultural reasons. It is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights and the health and integrity of girls and women. Most girls and women who have undergone FGM live in sub-Saharan Africa and the Arab states, but it is also practiced in some countries in Asia, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. According to the United Nations Population Fund, while the exact origins of the practice remains unclear, it seems to have predated Christianity and Islam. It says that some Egyptian mummies display characteristics of FGM. Significantly, the ancient Greek historian Herodotus has claimed that in the 5th century, the Phoenicians, the Hittites, and the Ethiopians practiced circumcision. Why is female genital mutilation practiced? Depending on the reason, there can be various reasons why FGM is performed. The UNFPA has categorized the reasons into 5 categories. First is physiosexual reasons. When FGM is carried out as a way to control women's sexuality, which is sometimes said to be insatiable if parts of the genitalia, especially the clitoris, are not removed. Next is sociological or cultural reasons. When FGM is seen as a part of girls' initiation into womanhood and an intrinsic part of communities' cultural heritage, hygiene and aesthetic reasons. This may be the reasons for those communities that consider the external female genitalia as ugly and dirty. Next is religious reasons. The UNFPA maintains that while FGM is not endorsed by Christianity or Islam, supposed religious doctrines may be used to justify the practice. Socio-economic factors. In some communities, FGM is a prerequisite for marriage, especially in those communities where women are dependent on men economically. Other reasons cited by the WHO include an attempt to ensure women's premarital virginity, since FGM is believed to reduce libido and therefore believed to help her resist extramarital sexual acts. FGM may also be associated with cultural ideals of femininity and modesty. Next is economic cost of FGM. Beyond the immense physiological trauma it entails, FGM imposes large financial cost and loss of life. In 2018, a study of FGM in India said that the practice was up to 75% across the Bohra Muslim community. The economic cost of treating health complications arising out FGM amount of to roughly $1.4 billion for 2018 for 27 countries where FGM is performed. If the prevalence remains the same, the amount is expected to rise up to $2.3 billion by 2047. Next is FGM in India. According to the aforementioned study, the reasons of FGM referred to as khafad in India include continuing an old traditional practice adhering to religious edicts, controlling women's sexuality, and abiding by the rules stated by religious clergy. It also states that the issue first rose to prominence in India because of 2 international legal cases on FGM against practicing Bohra in Australia and the US. In 2018, a bench of then CJI Deepak Misra referred a petition seeking a ban of FGM among Dawoodi Bohra girls to a 5-judge constitution bench. The Dawoodi Bohra community, on the other hand, maintained that the practice should be allowed since the Constitution grants religious freedom under Article 25. So students, off for the day. Hope you like this video, share this video, and subscribe our channel if you haven't subscribed our channel, and download our application from Play Store. There you will get further content on app, and you will get many test series that will enrich your knowledge and preparation. So keep practicing more and more test series. Thank you so much. Bye bye.